Okay, so the last developmental stage, adolescence. So general characteristics, appearance of the secondary sex characteristics. So usually in cessation of growth and emotional maturity, although I would beg to differ on the emotional maturity part. Divided into early, middle, and late because of the changes that occur between the span of 13 and 18 years of age. Big difference between a 13-year-old and an 18-year-old. Um, so major tasks they have formed an identity, a separation from, parents, and they initiate intimacy on their own. Major challenges, physical growth, coping strategies are huge. They struggle there. Communication and a healthy lifestyle. These are the developmental stages for Erikson, Paget, and Freud. So Erikson, intimacy, abstract reasoning, and then the genital stage with Freud, of course. Growth and development, physical development. So adolescence for girls begins around 10 to 13 years of age. Obviously, rapid changes in the structure and function of their body parts. Um, During this phase, boys and girls produce somewhat equal amounts of androgens and estrogens before puberty, but of course, this changes in puberty. Um, so basically, the patho behind this is the hypothalamus, signals to the pituitary gland to secrete other endocrine hormones. And then we start talking about like the estrogen and everything. Psychosocial. So again, what I said in a couple slides ago, the sense of identity that they formed, sense of intimacy. There could be cultural or spiritual considerations, and then body image, especially nowadays with social media and influencers, boys and girls seeing constantly this manufactured body image and lifestyle that is again cultured for that. That's it's not achievable typically, and as adolescents, they may not always understand that, and they can develop body image issues. And I feel like it's a huge problem. Um, Instead of solving it, I feel like it's getting worse. But anyway, that's my own tangent. Culture and its effect on behavior. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Um, Adolescent behavior problems and expectations differ in different areas of the world. And if they're from a different culture, it's important as a nurse to respect that. And maybe if you're talking to the parents and trying to educate them, asking them and getting more information on the aspect of their culture as it relates to adolescence so that you have a better knowledge base. Peer relationships, obviously huge in adolescence, helps adolescents feel like they belong. School assumes an important role. Belonging is very important to the adolescent. Obviously, we know cliques form. They develop close personal relationships with at least one peer of the same sex, helps them define themselves, and um, is just very important. Career plans. So this is around the time they start thinking about maybe what they want to do after school that's best suited for them. But a lot of times this is an issue because they don't really know themselves, their limitations and their capabilities quite yet at this age. That comes with experience and time. So parents should observe the interest of their child and encourage them to take advantage of their talents. And that kind of guides them and directs them on if they start utilizing maybe a talent or something they're interested in, and then they find out maybe I'm not so good at that, that helps build that foundation of knowing themselves. School guidance counselor, administrators, aptitude tests, and to be happy in a career choice, the adolescent must choose it of his or her own free will instead of being forced into, like, you're going to be a doctor. That's what we're doing. There's no other option. Or you're going to be an engineer. It happens a lot, but they're not truly happy as an adult in that career field. Responsibility. So educate parents to encourage their children to take on more autonomous tasks and challenges, such as getting a job, getting their driver's license, um, teaching them the value of money. So obviously, this really isn't something that happens much anymore, balancing a checkbook. But for instance, give using Cash App or Venmo for a teen account and letting them learn how to manage their money that way. Cognitive development. So development, according to Paget, is systematic, sequential, and orderly. They're still in the concrete phase of thinking. By middle adolescence, so like 15 or 16, they have the ability to think abstractly, or at least it's increased, and stage of formal operations. So older adolescents can see situations from many viewpoints, which is very important. Um, and even then, they're not fully capable of doing the same. Um, they're not fully capable of taking a step back and looking at every point of view as an adult even would be, but they are beginning to exercise that ability. So, um, empathy and just putting yourself in someone else's shoes. They get better at that. Abstract thinking, like we've already talked about. Again, able to sympathize and empathize. They understand their own values better and their actions, and understand and accept differing values and actions of others. Sexual behavior. So, um, this it is important that they meet and become acquainted with members of the opposite sex. So they begin to date a lot of times, whether it's groups, couples. Um, that is a part of adolescence. That is a part of maturing. That is a part of growing and gaining experience. Sexual behavior. So sexual experimentation goes along with that, starts to occur, can be from peer pressure, could be from hormones. Either way, this is what typically begins to happen in adolescence. It can affect growth and development um, through unplanned pregnancies or STIs. So, sex education is vital. They should have had some sex education in the school age years, but it's better late than never. It can be challenging for the adolescent. Sex education should be age appropriate, or else they're gonna tune it out and think, oh, this is so cringe. Coping skills for dating and sexuality. Talking about all that. Abstinence and contraception are also discussed, and decision making is emphasized. So research shows that adolescents who got early sex education from a caring parent or well-informed adult do not have a higher rate of sexual activity. Homosexuality behavior is not uncommon in adolescents. They might have concerns about being different sexually and sexual maturity. That's normal. So, parenting the adolescent, obviously, we've all heard stories. It can be difficult for parents. Um, Adolescents need to talk about their fears, let them talk openly, see what's bothering them. They need assistance in sorting out what they're confused about, their confused feelings. Again, those hormones are raging. They have so much going on in that brain. Letting them talk it out, sort through it is better. Important to keep lines of communication open. So if they know they can come talk to you about anything, that's really going to help you in parenting and guiding them. So, signs that intervention may be needed, um, like warning signs. So, they spend time on the computer in the early hours of the morning. They change the screen on the computer when a parent enters the room. They have pornographic material on the computer and make frequent long distance calls. This is a really huge problem for boys and just the male gender in general these days. I don't care how old you are. It is very accessible and it becomes addictive and it can lead to so many problems later on in their life and their relationships and partnerships. So it's important to notice the signs and get a handle on it early. It can lead them down a road that isn't beneficial for anyone. So just be aware of that. It is very accessible. Nutrition, dietary deficiencies are more common, especially girls, adolescent girls. Iron is a huge concern. Um, Nutritional requirements are strongly correlated with sexual maturity ratings than with age. Skipped meals, more between meal snacks. They go out to eat more, maybe with friends. Um, so like I said, usually the common deficiencies are iron, calcium, B12. Um, so make sure they're eating protein-rich meals. Um, Increasing things like fish, soy, peanuts, and rice, which can help with memory, and brain function. Um, if they are vegetarian, make sure they have a high intake. Um, just make sure they're getting enough protein because a lot of these vegetarian diets that's can cause a deficiency in iron. Sports and nutrition. So athletes obviously exhaust more energy through the use of muscle glycogen. Um, Caffeine and alcohol deplete body water and should be avoided. And then, of course, anabolic steroids are harmful to bone growth. Personal care, hygiene, especially for the adolescent boys, this can be, at least in early adolescence, this can be a sore spot. Getting them to brush their teeth regularly, shower regularly, and just grooming. Um, so it's important to make sure that this is happening, especially because of the hormone and body changes. They need it even more. And then, of course, dental health, brushing those teeth regularly. Um, and this applies mostly to adolescent females, but sunbathing, educating use of sunscreen, protect the eyes from prolonged sun exposure. So for safety for adolescents, MVAs, motor vehicle accidents, are a huge cause of death and disability. Um, so preventing MVAs, very important. Um, Body contact sports is another safety concern, like football, because of concussions, and we've all heard about CTE and how that affects behavior and aggressiveness in men. So just encouraging them to wear the appropriate protective gear. Um, so female athletes, there is something called a female athlete triad. that if you're caring for a female adolescent to be aware of, if they're an athlete, eating disorder, amenorrhea, and osteoporosis. So amenorrhea, they have had an initial period or menstruation, but it has stopped. They no longer are having periods. And then, of course, osteoporosis or their bone health is suffering. So paying attention to those three things can clue you into something is going on. Drug use, adolescents are more prone to mood swings as they adjust to the physical and psychological changes. And sometimes to assuage those mood swings, or to escape it, they can use drugs, turn to drugs. And then, of course, peer pressure is also a factor. So a nursing assessment for drug use, PACE. So parents, peers, sorry, that just that always makes me giggle. A, alcohol, automobile, C, cigarettes, E, education. So if two or more of these are problem areas, they may be at risk for drug abuse. And of course, we all know drug abuse is a huge problem in society. An appropriate referral should be made. Depression. Now, I've mentioned before in a previous stage that the rising increase in men and boys with depression and suicidal ideation or suicide risk has increased exponentially. Um, so it's very important to educate parents and to pay attention to if there's any changes in their teens' behavior. Um, Drug use can often precede depression. There can be a change in school performance, maybe their appearance, they're, you know, just not dressing like they usually do or grooming. Um, that can be a warning of it. And a threat of suicide is the call for help. And that is when you know, it it's been an issue for a while, and now they are alerting you to the fact that something's wrong. So just being aware, and paying attention to these changes, these patterns. The school nurse can help by recognizing this, encouraging communication, giving resources and numbers for hotlines if needed. And of course, that is confidential, um, and providing professional referrals. Adolescent pregnancy. So girls struggle to deal with developmental issues anyway. So some risk factors are the age at which pregnancy occurs, nutritional intake, sexual activity, and limited access to healthcare. Tasks of an unplanned pregnancy, and this is all the trimesters. Um, you know, by the second trimester, helping that adolescent focus that this is real, this is a baby, this is happening. And the third trimester, preparation. Again, open lines of communication, letting them know that they can talk freely, um, enable them to feel at ease before caring for any adolescent patient. Privacy is a huge thing. They're not going to open up and feel at ease if they don't feel like they have privacy or confidentiality. Respect their autonomy. And if they're hostile, it's often because they're scared. And rebellion may be an effort at grasping for their independence and autonomy. So guiding parents to listen and understand and talk with their adolescent is key. All right, that's it.